Good evening. From Walnut Hills School for the Arts, my name is Garrett Murphy, a graduate of the class of 2008. And I'm delighted to welcome you to the third evening in our series, Winter Art Crush. In tonight's Crush, we feature our Writing, Film, and Media Arts department and take a look at work by some students and recent alumni. We will hear about their process, the high points, challenges, and everything in between. But first, we are joined by the department's head, Margaret Funkhauser.
Thanks, Garrett. I'm so excited for this evening and to talk to these students. Our hope in gathering them together and the thing they have in common is that they have all done independent projects outside of classes. So we're going to talk a little bit about those projects. We're going to talk about how WFMA supports and encourages them during the process and helps them submit them to film festivals, awards, and put things together for their college portfolio. We have some juniors, we have some seniors, and we have one alum. Some of the awards that they have been recognized for these films are Young Arts, Scholastic Art and Writing, multiple film festivals, and college acceptances. All of the films were made during the COVID-19 pandemic. Some filmed right on campus, some filmed in bedrooms during lockdown, some filmed in other states, some filmed in other countries.
And everyone should know who's watching tonight that you can see the entirety of all these films this Sunday, February 6th, between 6 and 8 p.m. during our annual telethon. So tune in for that. Tonight, we'll just be showing some clips and highlights and talk to the students. And now I think Margaret will welcome the students to join us. I thought we might start with a piece that I was really impressed by looking at the work that's going to be featured in our telethon. We have a junior, Kia, on. And Kia, what are we about to see?
Yeah, so this work is called Pastel, Sloth. It's based on VA elements of charcoal and pastel, and those two identities crashing each other and smudging each other off. This is also 2D and 3D hybrid mixed together in one environment. Yeah.
Let's take a look. That's wonderful, Kia. We're really looking forward to watching the whole thing on Sunday. I'm curious to know, while we have you though, where was this initial spark, the initial idea? What motivated you to create this piece?
Yeah, so normally I start with something very visual concepts and then try to dig down very much to figure out like these personal concepts that I can relate to. But this was unique in that I started by writing something very personal to me that happened. And I just continued to write like the starting exercises we do in WFMA classes. And then that transition, although the actual writing wasn't actually in the film, it heavily influenced the process. And that was like the first artifact that I could carry on and through the process to really focus on the origin when I'm like lost in this very complicated world of animation.
Next up, we have Anna with a film called Parallels. Let's take a look at a clip from that. Wonderful, Anna. Thank you for sharing that with us. So I know from talking with you about this film, you collaborated and worked with some professional actors. What was that experience like?
So I actually created this film for my college application. And most of the colleges I applied to asked for one piece of visual media. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them asked for one piece. So I decided I was gonna pull out all the stops and make a piece that I was super, super proud of. And my godmother actually has connections to a couple of actors, and through one of them, I met another one, and I ended up working with these two people, Nate and McKenna, who are wonderful people, and it was super super interesting to be, a 17-year-old director holding, just my camera and a stabilizer and directing these people who have been studying acting since I don't even know when. Like, they've been studying it for so long, and it was nerve-wracking at first, but after a while we got kind of used to it, and it began feeling kind of like I would give them an instruction, they would give me some advice on on the scene or the shot, and it was very give and take, and it felt super collaborative, and it was something that I have never tried before, and it was a great way to get experience in that realm, especially with people that I already knew a little bit. And yeah, overall it was a really really good experience, and it created a film that I was super super proud of.
As well, you should be. And I'm curious too. I think you mentioned to me you filmed this in California. Is that right? What were some of the challenges, or how was that experience?
Yeah, so the idea of the film is that two people who are physically very far apart have this kind of connection, and I figured it would be very method acting to like actually put that distance in between the actors, and that was a super important part of the process for me, just to like actually travel that distance. And doing that was so interesting because I had never shot a film in a state that was not the state where I lived in, and the weather was completely different, and I don't know, it was pretty wild, and it was awesome because we were able to go outside, and yeah, it was great. And COVID wasn't, I mean, obviously COVID was bad still, but it wasn't as bad as it is right now. So we did have, it was more lenient with the masks and stuff, and how I was able to work with the actors. So I'm thankful for that. And it ended up going over with no bumps, which was great.
That's wonderful, and such a treat. We look forward to seeing all of that on Sunday. Next up, we have Lisa with a clip from her film Behind the Bathroom Door.
Put her on the phone. Just, yeah, can you put her on the phone, please? I need to talk to her. Yeah, I know what I know, that's why I want to talk to her. Please, she's my best friend.
So Lisa, you mentioned to me that you worked with quite a big team on this, and some theater majors and others. Like, what was that process like?
So it was actually my first big independent project that I've done on campus. And it was a big step for me. I decided that this film is really about acting, and acting plays a big role in it. So my goal was to really find good actors, and we have theater majors, and I love collaboration between majors. I think it's great, and that's how, it's a great practice for how industry actually works. So I sent out an email. I was doing auditions for 2 weeks, which was longer than actual production took, and it was a lot of work. But I think we were around 13 people in the team, which is pretty big for like a student film, because usually it's around 5 people. So we had 13, 5 people in crew, and around 7 actors. So it was a pretty big team.
And a lot to manage during these times too.
Yeah.
So, but more importantly, there's an activist sort of theme throughout this, and I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about what that means to you and what you were trying to convey.
Yes, definitely. For me, at all, like my goal in filmmaking is to make impact in this world. I make art that's meaningful and tries to make the viewer think about something. So my film really talks about the hidden part of assigned female assigned people at birth. So basically, it could be transgender people, non-binary, and just females, how there's this part of us that we don't usually show. And sometimes I just was wondering that bathroom is such a like a taboo kind of thing. We never usually go there, like we don't think much about it, but it's a place where we go through stuff. There's so much going on there, and I just noticed that, and I was like, let's make a film about it. Let's talk about something that people don't usually talk about. And I feel like my goal was to sometimes maybe make it a bit uncomfortable, or like actually put people there because it's hidden and people should know about it. And I feel like my goal with it was to make people realize how much they don't know, how much actually teenage females, transgender, non-binary people go through behind the closed doors. That's where the kind of the title came from, behind the bathroom door.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. Next, let's take a look at a film by Jane Curley here. It's called Cat and the Ant.
Gross.
Hi, Jane. That was great, and we're looking forward to seeing the film in its entirety on Sunday. I'm curious, can you tell us, what was your process? Because all this, of course, took place, if I'm not mistaken, during quarantine.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't easy because ideally, of course, I would love to have had a crew for this because it was like a very big project to take on. I was filming it in the woods by myself. So it required me like getting up and filming before driving to school in the morning. Filming with weather and stuff, of course, wasn't easy. There's like animals out there, like deer I had to ward off and whatnot. But I think with those like flaws in the process though that kind of came about, it kind of makes the film what it is, because I don't think with how I wrote it, it's not meant to be like super perfect. I'm very into like psychological and experimental genres, so I think it definitely ended up working out in the end.
I should say. So I'm curious to know, what was the inception of all of this? What did it start off as?
Yeah, so it actually started as a script. I was in a script workshop class with Ronan Noon, and it was literally just I needed to get a script done. But what happened with this work was it felt like it came like full circle with everything, like all the media I take in that inspires me. Like I saw sort of Lord of the Flies element in it too, or maybe even like Donnie Darko or like Catcher in the Rye. So it's kind of like a mix of all the media that I like. And literally some parts of the script were like I'm sitting in my room and I saw like this giant wooden stick from the woods behind my house, and like I'll add that in as like a detail. And yeah, a big part of it is those woods like mean a lot to me that are in my backyard during quarantine. I would just take like tons of walks going back there because there wasn't much else to do. So it definitely impacted what I wrote about a lot.
Well, thank you so much, Jane. And we're looking forward to seeing Cat and the Ant in its entirety. And you should be very proud of your work. Next up, we have a film, Oasis by Paige Zimmerman. Let's take a look. Okay, so Paige, I'm curious to know about your process and all the sort of things that happened along the time that you were making Oasis.
Yeah, so I decided to film Oasis and the whole kind of idea came to fruition 3 days before the Scholastic deadline last year when everybody was still on Zoom and I hadn't been on campus or anything yet. So I was just like very comfortable with being in my room alone. So I was like, all of a sudden had the idea. And I remember I opened a Google Doc and scribbled a bunch of things down and I looked at the deadline and I was like, I need to start filming right now. And I got up and I like ran around and grabbed a giant teddy bear and grabbed like a little kid's house from my attic and like put a whole set together. And basically like tried to portray a little scene from my lucid dreaming mind to make this film, which is about kind of lucid dreaming and like dreaming and knowing you're in it, and kind of being able to like control what happens in your dreams. And I want my audience to kind of like unlock new pathways in their thinking and to explore their like subconscious, I guess.
That's an amazing turnaround time. I'm curious to know what's it like to submit a film and share it with the world? Like, what is the difference between sending it to an award or a contest for consideration versus just doing work for a class?
I think that, well, when I made this whole film, I completely just thought I was going to randomly send it in and it was going to be just like a for fun type of thing. I wasn't really thinking like, I'm making this to win something. I'm making this to achieve something. It was kind of just like, oh, I'm making this to have an experimental film that I've made and to explore this genre more than just saying I'm interested in it. So I guess I was kind of trying to take action towards that. And I like wasn't even, I feel like I like wasn't even thinking when I was just doing it. I was kind of just like, it was like white noise. I was just in it and I was like in the little filming world and I would work for like 4 hours a day, 7 hours a day and just edit. And like the whole process was very, I don't know. It was a very odd and quick process. It was like so fast. It was, yeah. And I guess it doesn't like putting it out to the public because of how I felt in the process. I didn't really like think I didn't think anybody would ever see it or that it would be like put out into the world. But I think it's very fun that it got to that point without me initially like tailoring it in any way for that. It was like a very authentic piece that I made for myself at the time.
Well, that's wonderful. And sometimes this sort of this stress of a short timeline like that can shield you from any sort of thoughts or worries about what anyone's going to think. And I think that sometimes the most creative things result from that sort of experience. And certainly it has with Oasis, and you should be very proud of the work that you created. Next up, we're going to be joined by a recent graduate of the program, Scarlett Liu from the class of 2021. And we're going to take a look at a clip from her film, Brave. Hi, Scarlett.
Hi, Garrett.
I'm so delighted you can join us, and you're coming to us all the way from Beijing right now. Isn't that right?
Yes, I'm in Beijing and I'm going to New York tomorrow.
And you're now at what school are you at now?
I'm currently attending the New York University as a film production major.
Wow, that's wonderful. And thank you so much for sharing your film with everybody. It really is. It is a powerful message, and I wondered if you might talk about sort of the motivation of creating this film for you.
I guess like part of my thematic inspiration come from the idea of vulnerability. It was when the beginning of the COVID that I was stuck in my dorm room and then I was having all these series of Zoom calls with my cousin. And then I guess much of the plot sort of stemmed from these law and enlightenment conversations. So the initial idea was to make like a film with him because he's also like a part-time actor. And as a child, he always liked to try out my clothes and dresses. And since we were both young, these actions didn't really seem odd or gendered. However, it's sort of changed over time. And then I sort of just wanted to explore the idea of masculinity and gender, especially in China, and drag queen. So like he's not a drag queen himself, but we sort of just want to play with the idea of that, and especially given the context of being in an Asian country. And later the little boy, he's also the child of my friend. An interesting fact is that his dad is also like a surgeon for breast cancer, so it's also worked with the plot that he's like a child with cancer that sort of save the crying person that was played by my cousin. Yeah.
It really is powerful. And I think it's a good reminder to write something that's familiar to you as well, and to have that sort of personal experience in it. What were some of the obstacles you faced in creating this?
I feel like it was definitely working with the little boy because I just asked his mother for him to be in this part, and then he wasn't really mentally prepared for like the strenuous like just workday of an actor, because we sort of started like pretty early and then it went pretty late to the day, and then all the like the adjustments of the camera and like the settings, and like especially the bold cap that he had to wear, like it took like 2 or 3 hours for him to wear the all like the full costume and like the makeup. So I feel like it definitely was just to talk to him as sort of an adult, even though I wasn't adult at that time, but to just really patiently to to help him to be in the character, while also to sort of maneuver around, like, yeah, I guess just like the position within the production, especially as the female young director.
Well, Scarlett, I think you have a lot to be proud of with this film, and we look forward to seeing more work from you and following your career and time as a filmmaker. And now, why don't we invite everybody back in? And I think Margaret has a couple questions for the group.
Thanks, Garrett. I've heard a lot of themes that have come up across the way the students have been talking about their films, and all of the films that you have talked about and the pieces you've talked about have met with success. They have won awards, they have been finalists for film festivals, or won awards at film festivals, or gotten you into college. That's not always the case. Sometimes your work doesn't get recognized or accepted. And so I'm wondering if a few students want to talk about how they manage and metabolize that feeling or that process of sending things out into the world and maybe not hearing a response back.
I can start on that because it has been kind of my experience a bit in the beginning. So I joined Walnut Hill as a sophomore. Half of the year was online, and first semester when I was back in Russia, I was making a film that I really loved, and I submitted it to various things, but I didn't submit it to a lot of awards, which was maybe one of my mistakes. And it didn't get recognized. And I was kind of a bit upset at first, but I was like, it's all right. That was my first time ever making an independent film. And it was not a big crew, and it was just me. So I was like, this was a great kind of like experience. Let's just move on. And then, as I said, this semester, last year, 2021, I made a film with a much bigger kind of crew, and I submitted it to much more awards. And I was selected for things. And it was really, really rewarding because of course it doesn't feel great that you weren't selected, but that doesn't make your film or your piece of art any less like good and valid. It's just, there are so many people submitting stuff, and sometimes it's just luck. It's basically just luck. And for me, it was just, keep pushing, keep making things, keep submitting things. And, that's how it turned out for me. And I'm really proud of myself for that because I just kept pushing.
Thanks, Lisa. Anyone else want to add something, or did it resonate with them? Scarlett?
I totally agree with Lisa. I feel like all these competitions in schools will definitely know if like your work is forced or like you intently speaking a language that they want to hear instead of your genuine voice. I guess to just really to find something that you're passionate and familiar about, it's really important when making your work.
I thought about that too when Paige, you were talking about how you made that film for yourself and it felt authentically you. And so that resonates for me when I support students in the process too, that it is your own voice, it's your own vision, and you shouldn't, imagine that you need to be any different than you are to win these things. And to echo Lisa, for sure, like one way you're not gonna be recognized is if you stop submitting, right? If you let that stop you in your tracks. So one last question I have, and it's, another pattern that I sort of have heard a theme in talking to you, all of these films are so different from each other in so many ways, both in their process and in their storytelling and in their outcomes. And so it's very hard to say to another, to an aspiring young filmmaker, what would you do? But I'm going to ask you what advice you would give another high school student or middle school student who might be watching this, who wants to create something on their own, who wants to create something independently, maybe outside of school or outside a classroom setting. Jane?
Yeah, this is kind of going off what people were saying even in the last question, but you genuinely do have to be true. You do have to be very self-motivated about what you're talking about. Like, you're not going to want to make a film that you feel disconnect with, that you feel like other people are going to please with. It genuinely has to be like a reflection of yourself. So yeah, even the film that we watched, that was definitely like a reflection of myself, the type of stuff I want to make. So that's what I submitted to colleges and showed to them, like, this is exactly like a reflection of myself, and this is what I'm motivated to make and what I'm motivated to keep working towards and showing other people. So yeah, that got me into NYU Film and Television. So hi, Scarlett, I'll see you.
Congrats.
What other advice do you have, Anna?
So before I was able to get these, or at least one of the actors in my film, I had to have a call with her to talk about what my intentions were behind my film, what was my process like for creating it. And I was so nervous to talk to somebody on the phone, especially because like in our generation, I feel like we text a lot and we do a lot of stuff through social media. So it was really nerve-wracking to talk about my work to someone I have never spoken to before and someone that I wanted on my team. And I'd say a piece of advice would be to not be afraid to meet new people and speak to them in person, because, I've realized that that's the best way to get your point across, is like speaking it, like over texting or Instagram DMing, and yeah, I'd say that's a big piece of advice. And also to be able to have that connection to your film, to be able to express your intentions behind it and why you really want to do it and why you want certain people on your team.
Kiha?
So yeah, I completely want to echo what Anna said about like sharing out, opening your ideas. If you just keep it to yourself, it's very hard to like really understand and grapple with that idea and the point of view of the creator. It's really amazing to find people who you can share ideas with. And it was such amazing that Lisa created the film, and then suddenly so many friends just came to me asking for, can you do lighting, can you do filming? And so we have so, like, just like that tipping of the domino, like so many friends are starting. And what I love about WFMA, this family, is when someone just comes to me like asking, I was wondering if you could, and that's like, yes, whatever, I like, we're totally down for anything. And that kind of like unconditional support, finding those friends and sharing ideas, that's the engine, I think.
I would add to that is like my definitely advice: make your films with your friends or with other people. Filmmaking is not an individual art form. It takes a team, and definitely if you're not in art school, you're just in high school, still find friends. It's, you know, they can be your actors and they can do your sound. And it's like when you actually have people look at your work, give you feedback. Like feedback has always been a big part of a WFMA. So now it's like, it's just like an instinct. I go to my friends and I show them my script, and then they give me feedback. I get my first draft, I show to my friends and make any edits. So like my advice is really like create a team, because I came to Kiha and I was like, can you just do my sound? But then he helped me with editing, he helped me with color grading, and he was just great. And you know, it was always like, and I looked at his film and I was one of the first ones to see his film and give him feedback on it. So it works both ways, and that's the way how Anna said, you get to meet new people through just coming and asking for feedback, you know? So it's get out there, do the networking, it's gonna be great.
Well, thank you to our students, Anna, Lisa, Jane, Paige, and Kiha, recent alum Scarlett Liu, and to WFMA Department Head Margaret Funkhauser for taking part in tonight's Crush, the third in our 5-part series where we take a look behind the curtain at the wonderful work happening in each of the 5 art majors. And a special word of thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. We invite you to tune in tomorrow, Thursday, February 3rd at 7 p.m. for our Visual Art Crush, where we speak with some faculty members and students from the department about the work they created last semester. From everyone at Walnut Hills School for the Arts, be well and have a great night.
Hi, I'm Macy.
I'm Kennedy.
And I'm Yuki.
And we're your hosts for the 8th annual telethon, Hearts for the Hill.
Coming to you live from the Delbridge Family Center for the Arts.
Sunday, February 6th from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.